Prism optics are not a new phenomenon. Using a single prism to focus an image instead of a series of lenses, they have several advantages. They're incredibly robust, do not require a battery to operate, and can be easier to use for those who have astigmatism. In recent years, there has been somewhat of a resurgence of prism optics, and many have bought some of these newer production ones, including me. You see, I have fairly severe astigmatism, so to my eyes, most red dots look like a starburst. It doesn't stop me from using red dots, but I almost never see a clean dot. For this reason, I bought a primary arms one-time prism and have owned it for many years. It's become one of my favorite optics. However, the one-times prism isn't a new concept. Enter the 1P76 Rakurs optic, a Russian-made prism optic with no magnification designed to fit onto AK dovetail mounts. Well, sort of. This one is actually a Chinese clone made by Spina Optics. Compared to other Russian optics, this one seems less popular. From the little information I could find on it, the Rakurs optic supposedly comes in a dovetail version, Picatinny mount version, and a civilian version that has an adjustable diopter. Why all the versions don't come with an adjustable diopter is beyond me. The glass quality of the optic itself is actually pretty decent for a clone. It's fairly clear, and in daytime, you'll have no issue seeing your target. The field of view is decently wide, though not as much as you might think with the size of the front lens. However, in darker environments, it can become quite difficult to see through the optic. Part of this is likely because the glass is tinted slightly darker. I'm not sure if this is realistic to the real thing, but it makes target spotting difficult in the dark. The real Rakurs optic has a tritium vial to illuminate the crosshair, somewhat like an ACOG. However, on this clone, there is no tritium, and therefore, no illuminated reticle. That would likely help in darker settings, but it doesn't solve the issue of the tinted glass. Since this is a prism optic, the reticle is etched into the glass. No battery is required to use the optic. Mounting the optic onto an AK is fairly simple. Slide the optic onto the dovetail and lock it in. I'm very glad this is a quick detach system, and doesn't use a singular hex key like the Chinese OKP clone. It's solid and convenient to take on and off as needed. The zero turrets are under these two caps. You can use a coin or the edge of a bullet casing to turn them. They're not very tactile, but they're clicky enough that you can track how much you're adjusting. There really isn't much to this optic. Since it's a prism with no illumination, that's about all the features on the site. Simplicity certainly isn't a bad thing, but an illuminated reticle would be a welcome upgrade. One important attribute of any prism optic is eye relief. Famously, the ACOG's eye relief is rather unforgiving, requiring the optic to be mounted far back on the rifle to maintain a clear sight picture. Obviously, on the Rakurs, you cannot adjust where it's mounted on the rifle, but the eye relief is actually fairly forgiving. Using the optic has been a fairly good experience. Mounted on my VFC AK, the optic has not lost zero, and as long as it's daytime, identifying and shooting targets is a fairly simple affair. However, there is one weird issue with this optic. The reticle is canted. Rather than it being straight, this one is canted at about 11 o'clock. It's very obvious, especially in relation to the AK iron sights. It's still usable, but I find it quite annoying when using the optic. I'm fairly certain this is not consistent on all of the Rakurs clones, but it's certainly a problem on the one I have. So, would I recommend this optic? It depends on what you want. If you're looking for a practical optic, I think there are better options for the price of $110 US. But if you want a clone of the real 1P76 Rakurs, and don't want to go through the hoops of getting a real one, this is a pretty good option. It's a clone of a niche unknown Russian optic, and for that purpose, it works quite well. If you're interested in checking it out, click the link in the description and pinned comment below.